Hey everyone, my name is Anne and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to crochet this striped tunic sweater. I will be making a small here, but sizes X small to 3X large are also included in this video and in the written pattern that I have linked down below. But here are the supplies you're going to be needing for this project. So getting started on this pattern, over here I have my category 4 yarn, and this is my 5.5mm hook. The first thing I'm going to do is just make a slip knot, and you can do this any way you would like. After this slip knot, we're now going to begin on the bottom border, and to do that, we're going to make a chain of 10. To make a chain, you just want to yarn over and pull through. Again, just yarn over and pull through, and then keep on doing this until you have a total of 10 chains. Once you have made your 10 chains for the length of your border, beginning on row 1, I'm going to skip this first chain and insert my hook into the second chain. I'm going to work a single crochet. To work a single crochet, just insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Doing this again, I'm going to insert my hook into that next chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then just continue to work these single crochets all the way down until you reach the end of your row. When you reach the end of row 1, we're now just going to chain 1 and turn our work. This chain 1 does not count as a stitch for the rest of our border. Moving on to row 2, this is going to be a little bit different. We're going to skip this first turning chain and inserting our hook into this first stitch. We're going to work 1 single crochet. Now into the next stitches until we have 1 stitch remaining, we're going to be working back bar single crochet or back loop single crochet. To do that, instead of inserting your hook into both of these loops as you normally would, we're only going to insert our hook into this back bar or back loop, pull through 2. Again, just insert your hook only into this back loop or back bar, pull through 2. And then just keep on working these back bar single crochets all the way across until you have 1 stitch at the end of your row. Now that you have 1 stitch at the end of your row, just go ahead and work 1 regular single crochet to finish off. Chain and then turn your work. To continue this pattern for our bottom border, this is fairly simple. You just want to repeat row 2 with these back bar single crochets until you have a total of 66 rows for your bottom border. I'm going to go ahead, work up all of my rows, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done. Okay guys, so I have now made it back here with my bottom border. I finished up working all of my 66 rows, repeating these back bar single crochet rows as you guys can see. So once we are all done with our bottom border, we're actually not going to cut and fasten off just yet. We're going to continue on to working the front and back panel directly on top of our bottom border. So now let's go ahead and get started on working the front and back panel. So now we're going to be moving on to working the front panel. The first thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to do a chain of 2. And this chain of 2 does count as a stitch for the rest of the pattern. So moving on to our first row, we're going to double crochet. To work a double crochet, you just want to yarn over, insert your hook into this first row, and then yarn over, pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2, then yarn over, pull through 2. That is our first double crochet. Now the next thing we're going to do is that we're going to skip 1, 2, and then into this third row we're going to work another double crochet. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into that third stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now into the same stitch, we are going to chain 1, and then into the same stitch, we're going to work another double crochet, and this is going to be our V stitch. So you can kind of see how this stitch kind of forms a V shape, which is exactly what we want. We're going to skip 3 stitches, so 1, 2, we're going to skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and then into this third stitch, we're going to work a double crochet, then a chain 1, and then a double crochet into that same row, just like this. Once again, skip 2 stitches, then double crochet, chain 1 and double crochet. So now you just want to repeat this V stitch, skipping 2 stitches and then double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Keep on repeating this stitch all the way across the top of your border until you have 2 stitches at the end of your row remaining. So I'm going to go ahead, work this up, and I'm going to see you guys back once I have reached the end. So as you guys can see, I now have 2 stitches at the end of my row remaining. I'm just going to skip a stitch and then work 1 double crochet into this last row just to finish up row 1. I'm just going to chain 2, which does count as a stitch once again, and then just turn my work around. Moving on to row 2, it is basically the same exact thing that we did, except we're going to be working in stitches, which will be a lot easier. Into this first stitch, once again, we're going to work 1 regular double crochet. Now we're going to skip 2 stitches and then double crochet, chain 1 and double crochet into that third stitch. Skip 2 stitches, double crochet, chain 1 and then double crochet. Keep on doing this until you have 2 stitches at the end of your row. When you have these 2 stitches at the end of your row, you just want to skip a stitch and then just double crochet into that last stitch, chain 2, and then turn your work. So now row 3 is just going to be slightly different. It is going to be the same exact thing that we did for the 2 previous rows, except into the very last stitch we are going to be changing our white color yarn for our black color yarn. So I'm just going to go all the way down my row with this V stitch, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I have 1 stitch at the end of my row remaining. So now that we have these 2 stitches at the end of our row, we're just going to skip the second stitch, and then now we're going to change color into the last stitch. To change color, we're just going to yarn over, insert our hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then now when you have 2 loops on your hook, I'm just going to yarn over with the black color and then just pull this through. With the previous color, you can go ahead and just snip it off. There we go. Now from here, just chain 2 and turn. With our black color, we're going to do just 1 black row, and we're going to do the same exact thing that we did last time, except when we come to the end, we're going to then just immediately change it back to our white color, and then the pattern will go on from there. But I'm going to do my V-stitch coming all the way down, and I'm going to show you guys how to change color one more time. And once you have finished working across your row and into this last stitch, we are now going to change back to our white color. So once again, I'm just going to yarn over, insert my hook into that last stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Then when you have those 2 loops on your hook, we're just going to yarn over with our white color, chain 2 and turn. Now to continue this pattern for our front panel, you just want to repeat those last 4 rows, working 3 white rows and then 1 black row. You want to do that until you have a total of 42 rows. However, you can make this however long you would want. You can make this shorter or longer, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to do 42 rows and then I'm going to see you guys back. Okay guys, I have now made back here with my 42 rows. This is what my full panel is looking like. This is where we did the border and then we just worked directly on top of that top edge all the way up until we had 42 rows in total. And you should have ended with your white yarn. Now from here, we are not going to cut and fasten off just yet. We're actually going to continue directly onto working the first shoulder straps. Let's go ahead and get started on that. So now we're going to be moving on to our first shoulder strap. I have already chained 2 and now we're going to be doing row 1. So for row 1, we are going to do our V-stitch just as we normally would before, except this time we are only going to be working into 26 stitches across our row, not all the way down, just into 26 stitches. When you have finished working into just 26 stitches down your row, from here we are going to do our very first decrease with the pattern. To do our decrease, we're going to skip 3 stitches. Here's 1, 2, and 3. And then into this very 4th stitch, we're going to work 1 double crochet. So you should be skipping more stitches than usual. And then chain 2 and turn your work. Moving on to row 2. We're going to be skipping 3 stitches once again, and then we're going to do our V-stitch into the 4th stitch. So just as we normally would, I'm going to skip 3 stitches this time, and then do that regular V-stitch, so double crochet, chain 1, and then double crochet to that same stitch. And then just keep on doing this all the way across your row, chain 2 and turn. I'll just chain 2 and turn my work once I reach the end. So now we're going to be moving on to row 3, which is going to be our last decrease row. This time we're going to do our regular stitch pattern all the way across our row until we have 4 stitches at the end remaining, and then I'm going to do that last decrease with you guys. Once you have these 4 stitches at the end of your row remaining, we're just going to skip those first 3 stitches and then double crochet into the very last stitch of your row. And just chain 2 and turn. Now to continue this pattern for our shoulder strap, you just want to repeat those last 2 rows, those 2 decrease rows, which is row 2 and row 3, until you have a total of 5 rows, which for me that's just going to be 2 more rows. I'm going to go ahead, work up those 2 last decrease rows, and then I'm going to see you guys back in a little bit. So as you guys can see, I have just finished up working my 5 decrease rows for our first shoulder strap. I did go ahead, cut and fasten off once I reached that last row, and now that we have our first shoulder strap all done, we're pretty much going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So now let's go ahead and get started on working our second shoulder strap. So moving on to our second shoulder strap, I'm going to first make a slip knot. Now from here, we're going to count 7 unworked stitches. So this is my first unworked stitch, and I'm just going to count 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then into the 8th stitch, I'm going to insert my hook, just like this. And then slip stitch to secure. Hold on one second. slip stitch to secure, so just yarn over and pull through everything. Now we're just going to chain 2 and begin on row 1. To begin on row 1, we're going to skip these first 3 stitches, so 1, 2, 3, and then into the 4th stitch we're going to do a double crochet. This is going to be our decrease. Then just complete that regular stitch. And now just do our V-stitch until the very end of our row. You should have a total of 27 stitches, just as we did on the first side as well. When you have finished to chain 2 and turn your work beginning on our second row, you guys can probably guess what we're going to do. We're going to do our V-stitch pattern until we have 4 stitches at the end of our row, skip 3 stitches, and then double crochet into that last stitch. When you have these 4 stitches at the end of your row, just going to skip those 3 stitches and then double crochet into that last stitch, chain 2, and turn your work. So to continue this pattern, it's basically the same exact thing that we did on the opposite side. You just want to repeat those last 2 decrease rows until you have a total of 5 rows. After you have those 5 rows, you can go ahead, cut, and fasten off. So I'm going to work up my 3 more rows to complete my shoulder strap, and I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done. So once you have finished up your 5 rows for your second shoulder strap, you can go ahead, cut, and fasten off. And now that we have both of our shoulder straps and our front panel and our border, you would just want to repeat this a second time so that you have 2 front panels, or a back panel and a front panel. So I just did the same exact thing, just like this. Once you have 2 of your bodices all done, we're going to move directly to working the sleeves from here. So now let's go ahead and get started on that. So now we're going to be beginning on working the sleeves. I have my yarn and my hook. I'm just going to make a slip knot, and then from here we're going to do a chain of 47. When you have your chain of 47, we're going to do the same stitch that we were doing previously, so this is our V-stitch. To begin on this, I'm going to skip these first 2 chains and inserting my hook into the 3rd chain. I'm going to work a double crochet, and then just do your usual chain 1 and then double crochet into that same chain. Skip 2 chains and then double crochet once again, chain and then double crochet. And so I've already kind of showed you guys the stitch off camera, or on camera I mean. So to continue this pattern for our sleeve, so the first thing that we're going to be doing for our sleeves is that we're going to work 7 V-stitch rows, just as we were doing previously. I'm going to work 7 V-stitch rows with this white color, and then I'm going to see you guys back to change our color and also do some decreases. So once you have your 7 rows with this V-stitch, I just have 1 stitch remaining on my 7th row, and I'm just going to change my color as we have been doing. I'm just going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and then just yarn over with my black yarn, pull through 2, chain 2, and turn my work. So now for this row, this is going to be a decrease row with our black yarn, and we're going to be decreasing every single time that we change it to our black yarn. So just as we have been doing, I'm just going to skip 3 stitches and then just double crochet, chain 1, and then double crochet for that decrease. Keep on going until you have 4 stitches at the end of your row, and then do the same decrease that we have been doing before. I just finished working all the way down my row until I had those 4 stitches. I'm just going to skip 3 stitches and then do a decrease, chain 2, and turn my work. Now to continue this pattern for our sleeve, we're going to be working 3 white regular rows, and then on our next row, which will be our 4th row, we are going to work a decrease row with our black yarn. So you should be doing 3 rows and then a black row, 3 rows and then a black row, decreasing every 4th row. And you want to do that until you have 16 rows in total, and that's going to be all that we're going to do for our decreases, and the rest will be really easy. I'm just going to go ahead, work up my decreases, and I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done. So I have made it back here with my 16 rows. As you guys can see, I decreased every single black strip. And now just to continue this pattern for our sleeve, you just want to stop doing any kind of decreases. Just do 3 rows of the white color and then 1 row of the black color. Again, doing no decreases at all until you have a total of 32 rows. However, you can make this sleeve however long you would like. I'm going to make a full sleeve, so I'm going to do 32 rows in total. I'm going to go ahead and work that all up on camera, and I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done to cut and fasten off. Okay guys, so I have made it back here with my sleeve. I now have a total of 32 rows. The first 16 rows we did a decrease on each of these 3 black rows, and then we just did regular rows until we had 32 in total, and this is what my work is looking like. Of course, after you have one sleeve all complete, you do want to do this a second time for both of our sleeves. Now we're just going to set these 2 sleeves aside, and we're going to go ahead and get started on working the collar. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So now we're going to go ahead and move on with the collar, which is fairly simple. I'm just going to go ahead and make my slip knot, and then we're going to do a chain of 8. Actually, we're going to do a chain of 9, sorry. Once you have finished your chain of 9, beginning into the second chain, we're just going to be single crocheting into each chain all the way down. When you reach the end, just go ahead, chain 1 and turn your work. Into the first stitch, we're just going to work 1 regular single crochet, just like this, and then work back bar or back loop single crochets all the way down until you have 1 stitch at the end of your row. When you have 1 stitch at the end of your row, which I have just made it to now, you can just work 1 regular single crochet, and then just chain and turn your work. As I mentioned, this is fairly easy. You just want to repeat row 2 with these back bar single crochets until you have a total of 60 rows for your collar. I'm going to go ahead, work that up, and I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done. So this is what your collar should be looking like after you have finished working those 60 rows, as you guys can see. So once we have our collar, our 2 front and back panels, and both of our sleeves, we're now going to assemble everything together into the assembly process. So let's go ahead and move on to the very last step of this video. So now we're going to be whip stitching our 2 front and back panels together. Over here I have laid both of my front and back panels right on top of each other. So this is the bottom where we did our border, and then this is the top, and I just laid them right on top of each other. The first thing that we're going to do to assemble our 2 panels is that beginning into the very bottom corner, we're going to whip stitch all the way up our sides until we have made it 6.5 inches from the top remaining. And those 6.5 inches from the top should leave room for our sleeves. You do want to do the same thing for the other side as well, just whip stitching all the way up the side until you have taken your ruler, and then you have just reached 6.5 inches from the top, leaving this large space for your sleeves. The next thing you would want to do is just whip stitch together both of your shoulder straps. So just beginning into this very top corner, just whip stitch all the way across these 2 shoulder straps right here, and then right here as well. I'm going to go whip stitch everything together for my bodice, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I have finished my work. Okay guys, I have now finished up seaming all of my work. I seamed up the sides and then the 2 shoulder straps, and because I was already there, I just went ahead and seamed together my 2 sleeves on both of these armholes, just like this. And then the last thing that I did was just seam all the way around to attach the collar to the head hole, just like this. So after you have seamed everything for your sweater, that is basically all you need to do for this project. The last thing you would have to do is just weave in all of your loose ends to finish. But that is the end of the tutorial, and I hope to see you guys back next time. Bye! If you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. If you bought this pattern, it would be super helpful if you left a positive review. But that's all guys, bye!